What if the reason you keep waking up in the middle of the dark has absolutely nothing to do with a broken sleep cycle? What if your mind is not malfunctioning at all? What if it is working exactly as it was designed to? You know the exact feeling. Your eyes snap open. The external world is completely silent, but your internal mind is suddenly deafeningly loud. Most people assume that jolting awake at this specific hour is a biological failure. You think it is a glitch in your nervous system, a sign of stress you need to quickly fix or medicate away. But what if this precise hour is the absolute only time your mind feels safe enough to force you to look at the things you successfully avoided all day? Psychologists who study the deeper layers of human consciousness have discovered something entirely different about this phenomenon. Your brain is not making a mistake. It is aggressively trying to deliver a highly urgent message that you have spent your entire day refusing to hear. And this is exactly why what I am about to tell you makes no sense until it does. During your waking hours, you are an absolute master of evasion. We all are. Modern daily life is essentially a highly sophisticated distraction machine, perfectly designed to keep you from sitting quietly with your own unresolved emotions. From the moment the sun comes up to the moment it goes down, your busy brain is processing external data. You answer emails. You talk to coworkers. You scroll through endless short videos the exact second you feel even a hint of boredom. You are constantly feeding your mind a heavy diet of new information. This continuous stream of rapid external data acts just like a chemical anesthetic. It successfully numbs your deeper psychological processing. You can easily ignore a feeling of profound dissatisfaction with your career because you have a meeting in 5 minutes. You can pretend a deeply passive-aggressive comment from a close friend did not hurt your feelings because you need to focus on navigating heavy traffic. You push these tiny moments of emotional friction deep down into the basement of your psyche. You tell your brain you do not have the bandwidth to deal with them right. You put them on a psychological credit card. But the human mind is an immaculate accountant. It never forgets a debt. And at 3 a.m, when the distractions are completely gone, the mind comes to collect. What is coming next is the part most people never realize. When you finally go to sleep, the rational defensive part of your brain essentially powers down. The prefrontal cortex, which handles all of your logic and emotional suppression, goes completely quiet. Your waking ego, the part of you that insists you are strong and unaffected, goes offline. At the exact same time, your sleep architecture hits a highly vulnerable transition phase. You move out of deep physical rest and into lighter, emotionally volatile sleep. At this precise intersection, your default mode network roars to life. This is the biological engine of self-reflection. Without the logical filter of the prefrontal cortex, every single suppressed thought from the day bubbles up to the surface. But because you do not have your logical steering wheel active, these thoughts feel incredibly heavy. A minor financial worry from the afternoon suddenly mutates into absolute ruin. A slightly awkward text message you sent 3 days ago feels like a life-defining humiliation. You are running a pure, unfiltered emotional simulation without the supervision of logic. People like you tend to blame themselves for this. You lie there in the dark, judging yourself for being overly sensitive or unable to control your own thoughts. You think you're losing your mind. You're not losing your mind. You're just experiencing your own raw humanity without the protective shell of daylight. But here's where it gets strange. There's a powerful psychological principle at play here known as the Zeigarnik Effect. It states that the human brain remembers uncompleted tasks far better than completed ones. Your mind absolutely hates an open loop. It desperately wants closure. You probably think of this in terms of your daily chores, like an email you forgot to send or a bill you forgot to pay. But the brain does not just apply this to logistics. It applies this exact same rule directly to your unfinished emotional business. If someone said something hurtful to you 3 days ago and you swallowed your anger to keep the peace, that is an open emotional loop. If you're harboring a deep sense of dissatisfaction with where you are in life, but you distract yourself with television and work, that is a massive open emotional loop. At 3 a.m, when the physical distractions are entirely gone, your brain brings out every single open loop you have been avoiding. It lays them all out in front of you on the dark ceiling. It says, we need to solve these right now. The frustration you feel when you stare into the darkness is not about lost sleep. It is about your deep refusal to close the loops you opened. Most people think this lack of logic is a weakness. They have it completely backwards. Your brain is not attacking you. It is actively trying to heal you. People who study the human nervous system have found that we possess a built-in mechanism for psychological self-preservation. Just as your immune system triggers a fever to burn out a physical infection, your deep psyche triggers mental hyperarousal to force you to confront an emotional infection. Let us look closely at what your mind actually focuses on during these dark hours. You almost never wake up and worry about abstract, irrelevant things. The specific thoughts that loop endlessly in your head are highly precise psychological coordinates. You vividly replay a conversation where you felt deeply misunderstood. You obsess over a major decision that threatens your fundamental sense of security. You intensely fixate on a perceived character flaw you try desperately to hide from your partner. Your mind is handing you a detailed, accurate map of your deepest internal vulnerabilities. It is pointing directly to the exact places where your daytime identity is currently fragile. The people who struggle the most with these nocturnal awakenings are usually the exact ones who are the most competent and capable during the day. You hold it all together for everyone else. You are the designated problem solver. Living like that is like wearing a very heavy coat of armor all day long. Your subconscious has to wait until the heavy armor is fully removed in the dark to show you the hidden cracks underneath. The deep frustration you feel when you stare at the dark shadows is not actually about the lost sleep. It is about the total loss of control. It is the profound, terrifying discomfort of being truly seen, even if the only one seeing you is yourself. What comes next is the part that tends to make people uncomfortable because it is too accurate. When you find yourself fully awake, your very first instinct is to try to fix the uncomfortable situation immediately. You start doing rapid mental math. You constantly calculate how many hours of sleep you can still get if you fall back unconscious, right this exact second. You try to violently force the awake mind into silent submission, and when that completely fails, you finally surrender to the rushing thoughts. You draft elaborate, detailed text messages in your head that you will never actually send. You construct flawless arguments to defend yourself against imaginary criticisms from people who are not even in the room. But this entire mental process is a brilliant, sophisticated illusion. Your brain is giving you a complex cognitive puzzle to solve so that you do not have to actually feel the painful underlying emotion. You're thinking compulsively at 3 a.m. as a strict defense mechanism against actually feeling. The intense anxiety over tomorrow is just a socially acceptable cover story for a much deeper, older fear of personal inadequacy. The hot anger about what someone said to you last week is just a protective shield covering a deep-seated fear of total abandonment. Your mind knows that feeling those raw core wounds is deeply agonizing. So it actively distracts you with hypothetical and possible scenarios. It intentionally keeps you spinning safely in the shallow waters of overthinking, so you do not completely drown in the dark waters of genuine grief or profound loneliness. This is exactly why you can never actually solve your real problems at this hour. You're trying to use pure logic to cure a deep emotional wound. It is exactly like trying to heal a broken bone by closely reading a math textbook. The racing thoughts are just the distracting smoke. The hidden emotion is the actual fire. And once I tell you what researchers found about this, you will not look at yourself the same way. There's a crushing sense of isolation that hits right around this time. You look out the window and the streetlights are completely still. The houses around you are dark. You feel like you are the absolute only conscious being left on the planet. The silence of the house feels incredibly heavy. But this deep loneliness is actually a disguised opportunity. It is a rare, unfiltered encounter with your own raw existence. Think about how much of your identity is tied to other people. You are an employee, a partner, a parent, a friend. You exist entirely in relation to what others need from you. Your entire sense of self is constantly being mirrored back to you by the people in your busy life. But at 3 a.m, all of those mirrors are permanently taken away. There is no one there to tell you who you are. There is no one there to validate your choices. You exist in a pure, unadulterated state of solitude. We spend our entire lives running from this exact feeling. We are terrified of finding out that underneath all the roles and responsibilities, there's nothing left. The nocturnal mind forces you into this empty room and locks the door. It forces you to sit with the person you spend the most time trying to avoid, yourself. The severe discomfort you feel is just the unfamiliarity of your own unfiltered presence. Behavioral scientists describe something very similar to this known as the authenticity gap. It describes the painful distance between who you actually are and the character you play to survive in society. Think about the heavy mask you wear. You nod politely at things you completely disagree with. You stay in jobs that slowly drain your life force because they offer a false sense of stability. You maintain relationships that require you to constantly shrink yourself. Every time you compromise your core values to keep the peace, you widen the authenticity gap. During the day, you are highly rewarded for this behavior. Society praises you for being agreeable and easy to work with. The external validation acts as a bribe to keep you disconnected from your deeper truth. But the night cannot be bribed. The night completely strips away the audience. When there is no one left to perform for the mask dissolves, you're left alone with the stark, brutal reality of your choices. If you are living a life that contradicts your soul, your brain will use the silence to scream at you. The tight feeling in your chest is not random anxiety. It is the sound of your own neglected authenticity demanding to be heard. It is your true self fighting its way to the surface of your awareness. And this is exactly why the physical side of this experience feels so overwhelmingly intense. In the deep analytical psychology of Carl Jung, this lonely hour belongs entirely to the shadow. The shadow represents every single part of your personality that you refuse to acknowledge in the light. Your hidden anger, your secret jealousy, your unfulfilled desires, the profound grief you pretend you have moved past. We are taught from a very young age to lock these uncomfortable traits in the dark basement of our minds. But they do not disappear. They wait patiently in the dark for your conscious defenses to completely drop. When you wake up, your shadow is sitting quietly at the edge of your bed. It desperately wants to be integrated. It wants you to stop pretending that everything is perfectly fine. True psychological healing does not happen by banishing the shadow. It happens by inviting it into the room. The people who truly master their own minds are the ones who learn to sit with their shadow in the dark without immediately turning on the light or reaching for their phone. They listen to the highly uncomfortable truths. They accept the parts of themselves that are chaotic, messy, and unresolved. They understand that the dark hour is not a punishment, it is a perfect mirror. If the night is terrifying, it is only because you are terrified of what you might see in the reflection. A truly fascinating layer to this entire experience involves our ancient evolutionary history. Anthropologists have fully documented that for thousands of years, early humans did not sleep in one single solid block. They naturally practiced biphasic sleep. They went to sleep right after sunset, naturally woke up around midnight or 2 in the morning for a few quiet hours, and then slept again until the dawn. That quiet, entirely awake time in the middle of the dark night was historically used to deeply process the busy day. It was used to sit quietly by the warm fire and fully integrate complex experiences. Your modern biology still perfectly remembers this ancient rhythm. Your actual DNA carries the deep physical memory of a time when waking up in the total dark was entirely normal and completely safe. You're battling an ancient biological rhythm that is trying to give you a necessary moment of peace. Your sensitive, hyperactive brain is an evolutionary masterpiece. It is built to keep you safe and process complex information. The fact that it occasionally wakes you in the modern world is absolutely not a sign of defect. It is an ancestral echo. It is the price you pay for having a high-performance engine in a world that asks you to drive slowly. And when you combine this ancient history with your modern chemistry, something completely fascinating happens. There is another vital component to this nocturnal puzzle that happens purely on a biological and chemical level. During the daylight, you are constantly receiving tiny microdoses of reward chemistry from your environment. Someone smiles at you, you finish a small task at work, you receive a text message. Your brain heavily relies on these tiny external hits of dopamine to maintain a baseline level of emotional comfort. But right around 3 in the morning, 2 powerful biological forces suddenly collide. The external reward drip from the day completely stops. And at that exact same time, your body naturally begins its early morning release of cortisol. Cortisol is your biological stress hormone designed to gently prepare you for waking up. When you combine this natural rising tide of physical cortisol with a total starvation of daytime rewards, your nervous system feels incredibly confused. If you have been living in a state of chronic stress during the day, your baseline cortisol levels are already dangerously high. When that natural early morning cortisol surge hits your already stressed system, it acts like a match dropped in dry grass. Your brain aggressively searches for any intense feeling to fill the absolute void and match the physical stress. And if positive stimulation is completely unavailable, it will readily and actively manufacture negative stimulation. Anxiety creates a highly intense neurochemical cascade. Your brain essentially manufactures drama out of absolute thin air just to feel something. It turns a tiny, insignificant worry into a massive cinematic tragedy, purely to satisfy its own chemical addiction to active processing. Once you truly recognize this specific biological trap, you can officially stop taking the panic so seriously. While exploring these psychological depths is incredibly valuable, it is always important to remember that this does not replace professional medical advice. If your sleep loss is chronic and deeply impacting your physical health, you should absolutely consult a medical professional. But for millions of sensitive people, finding the deeper meaning in these patterns changes absolutely everything. The ultimate answer to making peace with this experience is absolute total surrender. The very next time your eyes snap wide open in the heavy, silent dark, do absolutely not reach for your phone. Do not dare look at the exact time. The exact time is completely irrelevant. Instead of aggressively trying to force yourself back to sleep, give yourself loving permission to be fully awake. Tell your deep mind, I am right here. I'm finally listening to exactly what you need to say. Shift your attention away from the racing, frantic thoughts and drop your focus directly downward into your physical body. Where exactly is the emotional tension hiding right now? Is it a tight, heavy band straight across your chest? Is it a cold knot right in the center of your stomach? Do not try to attach a logical story to the physical feeling. Just let the raw physical feeling completely exist without any judgment at all. This specific approach of radical acceptance actually comes directly from clinically proven mindfulness practices designed specifically to successfully reduce severe midnight rumination. The exact precise moment you actively stop fighting the heavy emotion, it instantly begins to lose its terrifying, suffocating grip over your nervous system. Deeply unprocessed emotions are exactly like massive ocean waves. If you stand completely rigid and try to fight the incoming wave, it will violently knock you down. But if you dive smoothly and calmly directly into it, the cold water quickly and harmlessly passes. It simply dissolves into the quiet, peaceful shoreline. We view a restless mind as a modern pathology. We are told to meditate it away or force it into submission. But a mind that wakes up and deeply questions its own reality is a mind that is fully alive. You have to stop apologizing for the way your brain is wired. You have to stop treating your deep sensitivity as a character flaw. Waking up at 3 a.m. is not a symptom of a broken sleep cycle. It is a symptom of a deeply functioning conscience. You possess a brilliant self-correcting psychological system that will absolutely never let you stray too far from your own authentic truth without sounding the necessary internal alarm. The night completely strips away the superficial noise of the modern world and forces you to face the raw reality of your own beautiful existence. It demands that you stop performing and start genuinely listening. The next time the dark wakes, you remember that you are not missing out on sleep. You are gaining access to yourself. The dark night is entirely not your sworn enemy to be violently defeated. It is accurately, quietly reflecting the deeply hidden parts of your entire identity that desperately, urgently require your extremely close attention. The highly intense, entirely quiet solitude of those early morning hours is actually a highly rare, incredibly beautiful gift. It is an entirely open, highly personal invitation to finally stop constantly running from yourself. It is a completely perfect opportunity to sit down entirely quietly with the absolute deepest, most authentic parts of who you truly are. I deeply want to ask you something very highly specific, and I entirely want you to be completely, brutally honest with yourself. Tell me in the comments down below, what is the recurring thought that always wakes you up in the dark? I read every single one. If this deeply resonated with your human experience, consider subscribing to the channel. We explore the deepest, most hidden parts of the mind here every single week. You are absolutely never as alone as you feel in the dark. Sleep well when it comes. And remember, the thoughts you have in the silence do not define you. They just reveal the depth of who you are.